watch, and be heard.
Oklahoma police say a serial killer may be on the loose, a butcher responsible for killing at least 4 women. Nobody knows who the killer is, and until now, the identity of the victims has remained a mystery as well. But now, we're asking you to help us identify these victims, help stop a killer in his tracks, and bring him to final justice.
My wife and I were coming down to find a place to fish, and I was just looking along the side of the bank trying to find a place to put a line in, and seen some debris there and logs and floats and what have you. I thought it was a big fish that had washed up on the bank, and of course that was rather exciting until I realized that it was a body.
Well, it was at afternoon hours of May the 7th, 1988, a fisherman reported to the Cherokee County Sheriff's Department that they had found a body floating in the Grand River just south of the Fort Gibson Dam. The officers responded, and with the help of the Oklahoma Lake Patrol, they was able to retrieve the body.
As we neared the body, we could tell that she had been anchored down with a concrete block tied with a telephone cable.
It appeared that she was clasping that block around her stomach. Very horrible. The body was that of a young white female. She was wearing a pullover type shirt, 3/4 length sleeves, and an inscription across the front of the shirt which stated, "Love is like a butterfly. It goes wherever it pleases and pleases wherever it goes." On her right hand, she was wearing a single ring, a silver with 3 sets in it, and on her left hand, she was wearing 2 rings. The medical examiner's office reported to us that on her left shoulder was a tattoo of a daisy, a yellow flower with 4 green leaves. And from that day on, we referred to her as Daisy Jane Doe. A certain period of time, she was laid to rest in the Tahlequah Cemetery here in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. The other investigators, myself, we still continue hoping that we will be able to identify her, because in order to find her killers, we first have to know who she is.
Nearly 8 years have passed since Oklahoma authorities discovered Daisy Jane Doe. With all their leads exhausted, investigator Jack Goss asked America's Most Wanted for help.
America's Most Wanted, I feel we'll never know who she is without their help.
America's Most Wanted knew it was a tough case with very little to go on. The tattoo, the sweatshirt, and the 3 rings were the only hard evidence to work with. In order to solve this murder, a better image of what Daisy Jane Doe really looked like and who she really was vital. In April of 1994, authorities working with America's Most Wanted exhumed the body of Daisy Jane Doe and transported her to the medical examiner's office in Oklahoma City. Dr. Clyde Snow, a forensic anthropologist for the state of Oklahoma, examined the remains to see if there were any additional clues that might reveal something about Daisy Jane Doe.
One feature that interested me, the teeth are in very good condition. Also, she was apparently a non-smoker. The teeth are not ringed with the heavy tar deposits that we see in smokers. So we can estimate her height to be about 5 foot 5 inches. One clue to age are these thread-like lines that course across the surface of the skull. In her case, they're still open, although there's perhaps some early closure back in this area, which suggests that she is in her 20s or 30s.
Armed with this scientific information, America's Most Wanted asked 2 forensic artists, sculptor Betty Gatliff and sketch artist Karen Taylor, to create a facial reconstruction using Daisy Jane's skull as the base for their work.
The first stage is to take the information obtained from Dr. Snow and go to the appropriate tissue depth chart. So I have used the information for white females and glued rubber eraser material at these different points around the face.
These measurements were made on cadaver material that takes into consideration the size of the muscle, the fatty tissue, and the skin thickness all in one measurement. I taper the clay from one depth to the next, and this gives me the shape of the face.
To determine the outline of her face, I will literally just connect the dots of these tissue depth markers. Following the contours around her cheekbone, around her jaw line, down to her chin.
I can't visualize a face when I see a skull. I have to put it together step by step.
We've determined that the lips can be pretty much approximated by having the mouth the width of the front 6 teeth.
The first feature I add is the mouth. Then I move on to the eye, building the eyelids, then to the nose, and then the ears are the last feature.
It's so important that we, in law enforcement, give it every effort to identify bodies for multiple reasons. In the case of Daisy Jane Doe, we know that she was murdered, and it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, for the police officers to investigate her homicide without knowing her identity first.
But with the completion of Karen Taylor's sketches and Betty Gatliff's sculpture, discovering Daisy Jane Doe's identity was becoming more of a reality. The next step was to take the 2 forensic images and combine them into one. 2 computer graphic facilities, Viewpoint Data Labs and Video Central, joined forces to create a 3D lifelike model by joining the 2 forensic artworks together.
In this package, we'll, of course, go in and sharpen up edges. We'll go and create eyelids and that type of thing that may get lost in digitized data. We can create a higher resolution of the model, which will actually look, after it's got its textures and its coloring, and it will actually look like the head that was provided to us to duplicate.
And now, from the marriage of art and science, from a mixture of hope and fear, there comes a face. The face of Daisy Jane Doe.
We always felt that if we could identify her, we could possibly find her killer or killers. That's a killer out there someplace. This may not be his only victim. He may still be active. Yes, we want to find out who he is. Somebody's missing Daisy Doe. It could be children. It could be mother, father, sisters, or brother. But somebody's missing her.
Remember, Daisy Jane Doe was wearing these 3 rings and had this tattoo of a daisy on her left shoulder. She was also wearing a sweatshirt like this one. Now, every face has 1,000 looks. We hope these renderings capture a part of Daisy Jane's essence. Forensic artists who created them are among the best in the country, and their work has often been incredibly accurate. If you have any information at all and can help give Daisy Jane back her real name, please call our hotline at 1-800-CRIME-TV. And remember, you can remain anonymous.
Next.
See 100%. Police in Oklahoma fear they may have a serial killer on their hands. In recent years, 4 women, all bearing a striking resemblance, have been brutally murdered. Bodies have been exhumed and their faces reconstructed. Investigators fear the deaths of these 3 women and the murder of Daisy Jane Doe are the work of the same killer. On June 24th, 1987, 1.5 miles off Interstate 35 near Paoli, the skeletal remains of a white female were found by 2 fishermen. Paoli Jane Doe was in her late 20s or early 30s. She was approximately 5 foot 3 inches tall. On January 5th, 1990, another body floated by surveyors in a creek outside El Reno, between Interstate 40 and Highway 66. El Reno Jane Doe was either a white female or an American Indian in her late 20s to 30s and stood about 5 foot 5 inches tall. And on October 23rd, 1994, Dora Jane Doe was found 2 miles south of I-40 on Highway 64D. Dora Doe was between the ages of 30 and 50 and stood about 5 foot 6 inches tall. She could be white, Asian, or Native American. Now remember, all 3 of these victims were brutally murdered. So if you even remotely suspect that you know one of these ladies, please call our hotline at 1-800-CRIME-TV. That's all for this edition of Final Justice. I'm John Walsh. Thanks for watching.